Okay, so let's dive in. We've got Kesser and Steen, part of this Nature and Innovation class, and today they are on a field trip, right? An old-fashioned farm visit.
That's right. And the focus is something called SilvoPasture.
SilvoPasture.
Okay.
And that's basically mixing trees and animals grazing together.
Essentially, yeah. Integrating trees, forage, and livestock.
Which got me thinking, is this some, new eco-trend, or is it actually older, something people have done for a long time?
That's the fascinating bit. This farm visit happening just before they go off to watch Denmark play Canada in hockey, apparently.
Ah, yes, little national pride on the line there after 2022.
Right, but the farm trip itself, it really cracks open this whole history of how we've managed land.
Exactly. So this isn't just, cows under trees. We're going deep today into the backstory of silvopasture, especially here in Europe. Because if it is old, what does that tell us about how Europeans worked the land centuries ago? What did things even look like back then?
It's a great question. How do we even picture those landscapes, the ones maybe early settlers encountered much later?
Well, apparently on the bus ride over, their teacher, Mr. Hendricks, was painting a picture for Kesser and Steen. He was talking way back, like post-Ice Age, maybe 10,000 years ago. Climate shifting, people settling near the coasts, and how different the map looked. You mentioned, land bridges. Like you could walk between England and Norway.
Wow, yeah. It really drives home how much the world changes, physically changes. It wasn't static.
Definitely not. And it makes you think about those Viking voyages, finding newfound land, as they called it. What were they actually sailing into? Was it truly untouched? Or had millennia of, something already shaped it?
That's a key point. And it contrasts so sharply with a lot of modern farming, doesn't it? The sources mention these hyper-specialized operations, huge facilities just for bacon or just for eggs.
Yeah, the term producer takes on a different meaning there. Very single focus.
Right. Compared to older ways where land had to do many things.
Like forests, for instance. We maybe think of them as just there. But they were managed resources, timber, fuel.
Absolutely. And think about Denmark specifically. The sources say historically it had very little forest, maybe only 1 or 2%.
Wow, really? So where did people get wood or graze animals?
Well, things like the Linghaden, the heathlands were vital for farming, and forests were used, but maybe differently. They even mentioned paying inheritance tax with wood.
Huh. Okay, so every scrap was valuable. Which brings us back to the farm visit idea. Just move the electric fence from the field into the woods.
It sounds simple, but it points right at silvopasture, that intentional mix.
Right. Silva, Latin for forest, yeah. So forest farming.
Exactly. Trees, forage, the stuff animals eat, and the animals themselves all working together. It's a type of agroforestry really trying to mimic natural systems.
Natural systems. Like with the animals that used to be here. The source mentions the European bison, the Wiesen.
Ah, yes, the bison. A really important piece of the puzzle. Historically widespread across Europe's forests, but not dense, dark forests necessarily. More open, mixed woodlands.
And what did they eat? Just grass.
Oh, much more varied. Young trees, shoots, leaves, bark. Apparently they like beech, ash, willow in winter, plus acorns, berries, all sorts of things.
So they weren't just living in the forest, they were kind of gardening it.
In a way, yes. The source calls them landscape formers. By eating certain things, trampling areas, rubbing against trees, they created openings, kept shrubs in check, cleared out weaker growth.
Like tackling dense sea buckthorn. So they actually created more diverse habitats just by being there.
Precisely. They're ecosystem engineers. Their actions ripple outwards, affecting plants, insects, other animals.
And we know they were here in Denmark.
Yep. Bone finds suggest they were around about 8,000 years ago in those kinds of open woodlands.
Okay, so animals grazing in woods isn't some radical new idea. It's ancient.
Very ancient. It was the norm for a very, very long time.
Which connects to that historical practice, only stopped maybe 200 years back, of farmers sending their pigs and cows into the forests.
Right, especially in olden years, when there was a mast year, loads of acorns and beech nuts. Great for fattening up the pigs.
And the pigs rooting around would turn over the soil a bit in the clearings too, right?
Exactly. So the forest wasn't just timber, it was pasture, it was pig feed, it helped with soil, multifunctional.
And farmers even had specific spots they used for cutting poles for fences or gathering leafy branches for animal fodder.
Yes, very specific uses. Which makes that question someone apparently asked, do cows eat bark?
Yeah.
Maybe less strange than it sounds now.
Yeah, if bison did, maybe cows did too. Or at least browse more than we think.
It certainly challenges our modern image of cows just eating grass in a field. Their diet could have been much broader.
Which contrasts with how some people might view farming today. The source mentions this sort of city dweller idea of farmers just pumping NPK fertilizer onto fields.
Yeah, a view perhaps disconnected from the natural cycles, seeing it as more artificial.
When, ironically, our modern farm animals, I mean, pink pigs came from wild boars in those same forests. Holsteins are highly bred, but their ancestors were wild cattle.
It's a good reminder of their origins. They aren't completely separate from those wild instincts and capabilities.
So this brings us to wood pasture. The source calls it one of the oldest land use types in Europe.
A really key term. Think open woodland, not dense forest.
Yeah.
Providing shelter, yes, but also grazing for sheep, cattle.
And resources for people to.
Definitely. Timber, sure, but also coppiced wood thinner stems cut regularly for things like woven fences or wattle or charcoal. And pollarded trees cut higher up to get poles above browsing height.
A whole integrated system.
Absolutely. And it goes way back. Roman times, even then, pigs were let loose in oak and beech woods for the acorns and nuts, or in orchards for fallen fruit. This wasn't niche. It was widespread.
Wow. So, okay, it's old, it's integrated. But what about now? Does SilvoPasture actually work today? The source says it can boost overall productivity.
Yes, that's a crucial point. You can potentially get multiple yields from the same land timber or nuts from the trees, forage, and the livestock. It can actually improve long-term income stability.
Okay, so it's not just about feeling good, it can make economic sense.
Potentially, yes. And then you add the environmental benefits.
Right, like the microclimate thing. Trees providing shade, keeping things cooler, holding moisture in the soil better.
Exactly. That makes the whole system more resilient, especially with, climate change bringing more heat waves and droughts. It provides a buffer.
And the animals help too, by grazing the undergrowth.
Yeah, that keeps fuel loads down, which lowers the risk of intense wildfires. Hugely important in places like Southern Europe. It protects a whole system, keeps carbon locked up instead of going up in smoke.
Less fire risk, keeps biodiversity up, and maintains profitability. Win, win, win.
It can be. And another big environmental plus, carbon storage.
Pulling CO2 out of the air.
Right. These integrated systems can often sequester more carbon overall than just a pasture or just a plantation forest on its own. Plus, they often need less heavy machinery, so fewer emissions that way, too.
Okay, so let's loop back to those early European settlers arriving in, say, North America or elsewhere, centuries ago. Given everything we've just talked about, this long history of wood pasture, grazing animals like bison shaping the land in Europe, what did they likely find?
It strongly suggests they weren't always stepping into pristine, untouched forest primeval, as we might imagine it. They were likely encountering landscapes already shaped by millennia of grazing, fire, and probably indigenous management practices, too, creating a mosaic of woodland, grassland, open areas, systems that were, in some ways, functionally similar to the wood pastures they knew.
That line from the source, the seeds were here even before the Europeans came over, really hits that home. The ecological processes have such a deep history.
Deep history is right. We talk about European settlement over 300, 400 years maybe. But the post-glacial landscape is 10, maybe 14,000 years old. And life before that goes back, way back.
Puts things in perspective. And this source stresses how looking back helps us understand now and plan bang for the future.
Absolutely. Understanding that history, those ecological relationships, is vital.
Even down to the basics, like knowing the different grasses on your land or remembering that cows, like bison, can eat more than just lush grass.
Well, that fundamental ecological literacy is key to good stewardship.
So maybe silvopasture isn't this radical new thing. Maybe it's a return, a way to get closer to a more, quote-unquote, natural landscape, certainly in places like Denmark. Healthier animals, better products.
It could be a pathway, yeah. A way to blend ecological health with the reality that farming needs to be productive and profitable. That's always been true.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that silvopasture is definitely not new. It's ancient, deeply rooted in European history, with real benefits, ecologically and economically. And those early European landscapes, probably shaped by very similar ideas, animals and trees working together.
Precisely. It wasn't empty wilderness, nor was it wall-to-wall dense forest necessarily. It was a managed, productive, dynamic landscape shaped by nature and humans for a very long time.
So a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. Thinking about this long, long history of mixing trees and animals in Europe with big players like the bison shaping things, How could really understanding those past relationships change how we approach things today? Not just farming, but conservation, managing whole landscapes. What lessons are sitting there in those ancient wood pastures, waiting for us to rediscover as we face today's environmental challenges? Okay, so let's dive in. We've got Kesser and Steen, part of this Nature and Innovation class, and today they are on a field trip, right? An old-fashioned farm visit.
That's right.